I welcome you all for today's session. I welcome Mr. Daniel, Mr. Santiago Niva, Mr. T.L. Gupta, Mr. Kimanan, and all other officials associated for this event. I welcome you all, and I also welcome all the participants, coaches, support staff for this session. I request now Mr. Santiago Niva to start.
Okay. Yesterday we had a little bit about strength and conditioning. Now we look at it today from long-term development in a boxer's career, from the initial stages all the way. Gupta, you want to?
Yeah. Good afternoon, friends. We are having from the last 2 days the classes conducted by Mr. Dan Jefferson, Mr. Santiago on strength and conditioning. These classes were well explained theoretically as well as practical. There were some good demonstrations and about the planning of the load and the number of repetitions. Today, Mr. Dan Jefferson will take about the planning of strength and conditioning. Because once you are preparing an elite athlete for a major competition, then you have a different periods where which thing has to be fixed, maybe preparatory, pre-competition, competition, or in the transitional period. Now I request Mr. Santiago to welcome our guest, Dan Jefferson, to deliver the lecture. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dan. It's all yours. Floor yours.
Okay, great. Let me just get my thing started. Okay, hi everyone. So today I will be talking on the planning of training for long-term development. Okay. I've put a quote there. So we need a long-term vision to allow young boxers to develop and be prepared for the demands at the highest level. Okay, now I put boxers there, of course, because we're on the topic of boxing. But any sport could be put into that word. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the process. I'm going to mention about different things that can happen and things that we have to be aware of through the long-term development. Okay, key things that we really need to be aware of. So, here we go. So, what will we cover today? Key points to working with adolescent athletes. We're going to look at some example case studies. We're going to touch on the early specialization. We're going to look at the different aspects of early specialization and what that entails. We'll also look at it from a medical perspective, and this will all be evidence-based and covering the wide range of research that's been done on youth development. We'll be looking at the value of multi-sport exposure at a young age. That's one thing we'll be emphasising throughout this presentation. And then the last part, which will be a big section as well, will be the physical training as a youth athlete, and basically what we can do to allow that athlete to grow and develop to move on to the senior and the elite level, and allow them to be in a good place when they get to that point. So these are key things to remember when working with adolescents. Children are not young adults, okay, and therefore shouldn't be trained the same way. We see this time and time again that there'll maybe be a big group, mixture of different people and ages, and they could all be doing the same thing at the same intensity, you know. And we have to remember that these children are not the same as young adults and adults, so that they won't be expected to tolerate the same training intensity or methods, etc. Okay. The age and stage of a youth athlete is crucial when designing sessions. Okay, that touches on the first point. So we have to be aware of where the athlete is and make sure that we're designing the sessions appropriately, safely, and always keeping in mind the long term. Okay? That leads me on to the next point. We need to look beyond performance at this very young age and focus on the long-term athletic development. We can't really be focusing on the little tournaments and doing big training phases and tapering and stuff like that for these smaller tournaments, because over time that will affect the athlete over time, these young athletes. So that's what we need to be aware of. We will talk more about this. Primary movement patterns should be emphasised at the youth level, with more sport-specific movements following ahead in their athletic journey. So that's touching on what Santiago was saying yesterday about that through these development ages, we have to work on the basic movement patterns, and they have to master these before we move on to the more complex type training. Okay, it's a journey. Okay, so we need to remember that. And multi-sport exposure, that should be encouraged at the youth level to allow young athletes to experience a whole array of different movements included in sport. It's not just about the movements included in sport. They're going to get a lot more out of having multi-sport exposure, learning different skills, being exposed to different coaches, groups of kids, etc. And I'll move on to speak about that more as well. So the next slide. So I wanted to pick on these example case studies, and I want to look at what these have in common with each other. These should be familiar faces you will see here. Okay, so you should know these two boxers. You may not know the one on the right, but we obviously have Lomachenko here, incredible boxer. Katie Taylor, again, incredible world champion, Olympic champion. And then on the right, I just chose something completely different. Lewis Hamilton, who is a Formula One driver, and he is #1 as well. Very, very good. They're all relatively young. Now, you might have already guessed what these three people have in common. You'll see Lomachenko, very successful, and he participated in multi-sport as a youngster. He did a lot of dancing. He was encouraged by his father. You probably read this, that he was encouraged to do these dancing classes and whatnot. And his father and himself, they do say that this has had a contribution to how successful he's been in terms of his development. Katie Taylor, she's a very successful boxer. She also played for the Ireland women's football team 11 times from ages of 14 to 19. So she played at a pretty high level for that age in a different sports. She was exposed to different sports at the time. And likewise with Lewis Hamilton, he was a black belt in karate, and he also participated in the football academy. Football to an academy level as a teenager, which is pretty high. So, you know, if you can see that these people are very successful moving on in their career, and they didn't specifically just focus on boxing or race driving at that young age. They did participate in boxing and race driving. However, they also participated in other sports. So this is just a couple of examples. There is many more, but I chose these. So looking at early specialisation, just to make a note of the sort of risks and what's involved. What are the inherent risks, and what do we really need to be aware of? And maybe sometimes we're not so aware of these things, but it's very important that we are. Social isolation, over-dependence on adult control, burnout, which is a very important one, manipulation by adults through misinformed judgments, increased sport-specific practice does not always equal increased performance. That you can understand that by the examples that we just used on people not specialising at that really young age. Okay, so you don't need to necessarily specialise at that young age to be the best in the world at an older age. Okay, so these key points, this is not an exhaustive list either, there's more, but these are the kind of very important ones that you need to be aware of with early specialisation and what the outcome could be if children are exposed and overuse, overload injuries, just due to the repetitive nature of the sport and the actions performed. Okay. This is it's called an infograph from a study that was done on a large cohort of Danish high caliber athletes. Okay, we're talking Olympic world level. So what you can see is the near elite or the not so successful specialised at almost 12 years old, just before 12 years old. And we can see that the elite and the very successful athletes that went on to be, they started specialising around 15. Okay, so you can see that gap of the specialisation and where that begun. You can see where it crosses at 18. Practice hours is around about just over 4,000 practice hours at the age of 18 is where it crosses over between the two groups. So that just gives you evidence of a large cohort of athletes that if you specialise early, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the best when you're older. Now, moving on. Oh yeah, so this is quite an interesting quote, to be honest. I got this from someone there. If your child could only study one subject at school, you'd be concerned at their development and the missed learning opportunities. So why let sport be the same? Let's allow kids to play and develop. It's quite an interesting thing to think about from that side of things, you know. I don't have children myself, but obviously if you think about that as a mother or a father, then put some perspective there. Now, from a medical perspective, we have to be wary of poor age-appropriate sports skills, like I touched on. If you're specifically targeting one thing, you're going to delay the development, and you're going to almost affect it in the long term. Developing wider neuromuscular patterns will have a potential increase in the risk of injury. Okay, so if we're specifically looking at the same motor patterns, so if you think of boxing, for example, that punching action and footwork, if you're continuously doing this over and over again at a very young age, all the way through, and not being exposed to different movement patterns, you could be at risk, so you have to be wary. Increased risk of physical burnout. You probably have heard of stories of athletes that have been really young, specialising and having to retire very young due to specialising so early. I read a story earlier on a British boxer who turned professional. This was in the 1912, I think. Turned professional at the age of 9, and he retired when he was 18, just before his 18th birthday. Okay, now that's extreme, of course. However, it just gives you an example of the effect of burnout over years. Increased risk of psychological disengagement is an important one to think about, and decreased chance of developing wider coping strategies. So of course, if children or youth and children are exposed to different environments, sports at a younger age, they're going to become more responsible and accountable due to different environments and coaches, like I said. So yeah, these are a few things we just need to be wary of and careful of when we're thinking about early specialisation. So that moves me on to the value of multi-sport exposure at a young age, which comes off the back of the early specialisation. So, a few points to think about is it doesn't hinder elite sport participation. I'll touch on that again. So, participating in multi-sport will not hinder your opportunity to be an elite Olympic world champion down the line. Early diversification sampling allows participants to positively have an exposure of a wide range of different contexts, and it will increase youth development. High amounts of deliberate play during the sampling years, and the sampling years is what they're talking about through a youth, through the young ages up till around about that 15, 16 years. Will build solid foundations, intrinsic motivation, okay, through involvement of activities that are enjoyable. That's the key thing, is enjoyable and fun, and it will increase that intrinsic regulation. Allowing a wider learning in different contexts, and it increases the opportunity to develop a wide range of motor and cognitive skills. So this is the kind of main point, is the physical training, and almost what should you do when you're looking at this. Okay, so I'm going to look at this I'm going to explain it from a strength and conditioning point of view, but it's also from a physical education, physical literacy standpoint as well. Okay, so when I say strength and conditioning, I'm not talking like very structured weightlifting, etc. But I'm going to look at it that front, as opposed to looking at it from specifically a boxing point of view. Okay, so this here is another infographic, and it's a really good infographic that's taken and designed around the consensus statement by the National Strength and Conditioning Association for Youth Resistance Training. Okay, so this gives you points from 1 to 17 of ways that we structure sessions, the ways that we should navigate the training. Okay, it's by a researcher, Avery Feigenbaum. He's done a lot of research on youths for years. So it's very good. So as we can see through the different points, so if you look at the top left, the importance of having a qualified instructor and supervisor is important, ensuring that it's safe. Okay. Now, what you'll see is starting each training session with 5 to 10 minute dynamic warm up. Okay, that is also creating good habits. Okay, with these kids. That's pretty important to allow them to be responsible young adults and adults when they move on to progress with their journey as an athlete, let's say. And of course, number 4, beginning with relatively light loads. To always focus on the correct exercise technique is key. Okay, we don't want to throw lots and lots of high load, high complex exercises at these kids at a young age. It's not appropriate. Number 5, performing 1 to 3 sets of 6 to 15 repetitions. Okay, variety. It's key that we focus on that word variety. Okay, we have fun. Variety of different exercises to keep the kids challenged and keep them engaged with the program. You'll see some of the other points is talking about the muscular development and the appropriate muscle balance around the joints, giving you an idea of sets and repetitions to do. At the bottom left in the red box, it's almost just a box that's saying use your common sense and let's not progress these kids and these youth too quickly. You know, so increasing resistance gradually 5 to 10% as the strength improves. Cool downs, listening to the athletes and then on the right, bottom right, we're looking at individualized workout logs to monitor progress, which also allows the young athlete to become more responsible and understand the why around physical development and physical training. That's quite important that we teach the kids, the youths, this as they progress on, and optimising the performance and recovery with adequate nutrition, proper hydration, and adequate sleep. That again follows on with the education. Okay, we don't want to assume that the youths and the kids understand. I've been in coaching courses and definitely coaching situations where the coaches will be providing the sessions and telling the kids, okay, you go and do this, go and do that, go and do this, go and do that. And the kids don't really understand the why really around it. So it's important that you take time and work on that education side of it as well. Because as I say, at that age, we don't have to rush. We don't have to rush through these things. Okay, so moving on with physical training. So I'll be bringing up a lot of these infographics and snapshots from these different research articles and books, because this has been well researched. Okay, so we're not trying to reinvent the wheel with this stuff. We know the training exercises that we can do. It's just important that we follow that and take that advice. So with this study that was done, they looked at how young is too young to start training. That's quite a common question a few years ago, and you can see with the different coloured lines, you'll see the representations on the top left. So the blue line, as you can see, the little man is pointing at, is strength and conditioning activities that are initiated during pre-adolescence. Okay, so that's structured. Okay, that's integrated neuromuscular training, very structured, very well programmed. Now, as this progresses and as they go through the different ages of peak height velocity through the development stage, pubertal onset, adolescence, etc., with the strength and conditioning activity training, they were able to develop much better as they got into adulthood. Okay, they had a much more mature neuromuscular performance and a neuromuscular system, so they were therefore better developed. Okay, so you will get this slide, you will get this presentation afterwards. So you'll have all the references on these infographics. So please, if you want any more information, you should go to these research papers and books and read these, because it's very interesting. So these are the key things. So strength improves sport performance and injury prevention with the inclusion of strength and conditioning activities. Now this here is you might not be able to read that as it's quite small with a lot of writing, but it's the research article here on the right. Is the long-term athletic development model, physiological evidence and application. Okay, so it's quite a thorough research paper. It was done in 2010, and it tells you exactly what you need to know. Okay, now it's not saying that it's 100% accurate. Okay, things can change, although it gives us a very good idea of what the specific things that we can train through the different age groups. Okay, so you've got speed, strength, and I'll also go into that in the next slide, the different things that we can train, or that you should train at different age groups. Okay, so I would I would encourage you to look into that further. If you've got a group of 10, 11-year-olds and you're thinking, what should I really be doing? Okay, you can look at that picture straight away, and it's fundamentals, learning to train, physical literacy, speed 1, looking at skill work. Okay, when they begin to move through peak height velocity, which here is current about between 12 and 16, male and female. Obviously, it depends on the individual, but that's when the hormones start to incur, and then we can start looking at, okay, let's introduce strength training and these different types of training, because they're starting to develop the system. Okay, so we look at that peak and that key period, critical period for development. Okay, so that's a really good slide and a really good display of what you can do. So I encourage you to look at that. And this is something that Santiago's came up with, which is off the back of the slide that I just showed you, that it highlights the importance of specific physical characteristics and qualities that can be emphasized through the years, from 7 all the way through to 20 at high performance, so we can see that your huge performance is going to be more apparent when we get to the high performance on different physical qualities. And we need to be aware of that. It's like what I said at the very start was, we don't train kids or youths as young adults. So if we look at the 20 minus high performance importance, okay, that wouldn't fit in the 10 to 14. That should have a different emphasis through different qualities. So it's important to keep that in mind when we're designing these sessions and training these youths. Certain physical qualities are more important, and just like I've described, gradual progression through each stage is critical, and like I say, there's no rush. That's very important. And youth are individual, and therefore will progress at different stages. There's no test that will tell you when to progress. So that's definitely a question I've had in the past when I've worked with different kids from boxing, football, and tennis, and etc. And people want to know what test do we do so we can move on to the next stage. Well, not really a specific test we can do. We just have to let the individual grow and develop as they move on. And when we feel they're more competent at certain things, then we can start to introduce more complex and challenging training types. Now, key points to wrap that up for the physical training is movement mastery. Movement mastery is key for young athletes' development. Okay, don't progress them too quick. Here's just another snapshot out of a book, which is I put in the recommendations at the end. Is strength and conditioning for youth athletes. Okay, there's a version 1 and 2, and it's very good. It's very in depth. However, it gives you a really good insight, and it almost tells you kind of exactly what you need to do. Of course, you have to fit that with the group of athletes or youths that you're working with, but the guidelines are excellent. So we can see that from a resistance skill point of view, we're going from low to high. Okay, this seems like common sense, but sometimes I think we forget, and we need to keep that in mind. You're going from the fundamentals all the way through to training to compete. Okay, learning to train and training to train. Now, I worked at a young football academy back home years ago, and they were faced with that challenge of early specialisation. They had kids coming in and they just wanted to play football. Okay, their parents wanted them just to play football to be the next Ronaldo or Messi. But as a football club, we had to come to the decision that for their development and growth, we had to introduce multi-sport. So within the actual program that they had to do, there was days where they would play volleyball, basketball, tennis. It changed as a curriculum, a physical development curriculum, and some of these kids have went on to play with the national team and international and etc. So it's important that we include that. So this is my kind of key takeaway points from all of that I've explained. we need to expose multi-sport activities alongside their main sport. So that's quite an important point, that we're not saying that the young boxers, for example, should not be training technique, or they should be, taking 50% off their boxing practices. It's not that. It's not about that. It's more about including different activities and giving the kids that exposure to develop different movement patterns, ensuring that the fun element stays alive in the program. We don't want the program to become stale and just plateau. Okay, that is something that's really been linked to disengagement with kids. They're getting bored too easy. I know myself, when I was younger, I got sent to karate. I was only doing karate, and it was very boring. So I stopped it, of course. So that was just an example of something. Think youth development as a marathon and not a sprint. Okay. Again, just emphasising on the long-term view of that. Evidence-informed practice. So, like I've just explained through all of these slides that looked at the physical activity and the evidence on early specialisation, etc. This has all been done. This has all been studied so far. Okay, it's continuously been researched by different groups across the world, but we don't have to reinvent anything here. We have information, so we should follow that. And build solid foundations is very key. And then we have a quote on the right. I don't know if that's by Franklin Roosevelt, but I found that online. Pretty good. So, just my last slide. Some recommended reading that I've looked at. Of course, there is a lot more books that you can look at, and I'm sure you already have, but 3 athletic development, and then the 2 strength and conditioning books, version 1 in the middle and version 2 on the right, second edition. These 3 books have been very good. It gave me a really good insight into the different training types you can do, the designs, the sessions that are going to allow these athletes to develop through the years and the stages. So yeah, so that's me. That's me finished. Do we have any questions?
Okay, so questions, you please in the chat.
Sorry, Santiago, would you like to add anything to that, Santiago?
No, not add. I want to emphasize on what you said, that training kids is not the same thing as training adults or young adults. Also, we should encourage them to that we want them to do a lot of variety of exercises and multi-sports, and this does not mean that they will not do the boxing, or that they should not train the technique, and that it is not important. It is very important, and in the young age, when the fine motor coordination is very important, it's excellent to practice technique, but they should do a lot of variety of exercises. So developing for long term, the same as you said.
Great. No questions.
See if we get some questions. Gupta sir, you want to say something?
Yeah, there's a question by Ron. Good question. Don't we want all athletes to do a variety no matter what age? Yeah, I would say yes. I agree. I agree that we want athletes to be exposed to a variety, but what I would say is at the younger ages is more important. So I would probably say at the elite level, we need to focus a bit more on the sport.
Yes. At some point, they need to specialize. So, for example, for maybe it's not that common in India, but in other parts of the world, it's very common that they do 2 to 3 sports at a young age. When I was a kid, I was doing football, handball, and judo at the same time. there comes one moment where you need to choose the sport, and that is different in different sport. But in boxing, in a lightweight class, it's very difficult to start late or specialize late. In a higher weight class, it's more common and more possible. But at some point, you need to specialize in your sport.
Good evening, friends. The today lecture was very important because to lay the foundation of any country, जब हम छोटे बच्चों से ट्रेनिंग शुरू करते हैं, उसको हमने एलीट तक लेके जाना है. That he has to progress many years of training. तो 6-7 साल बच्चा ट्रेनिंग करता है. किस एज ग्रुप के अंदर किस प्रकार की ट्रेनिंग ज्यादा प्रेफरेबल है? जैसे 7 to 10, मिस्टर डैन हैज रिकमेंडेड मोस्टली गेम्स. अगर हम बॉक्सिंग का जब परफॉर्मेंस स्ट्रक्चर पढ़ा था, उस वक्त जो बच्चों के अंदर हमारा मेन एम होता है कोऑर्डिनेशन को डेवलप करना, उनका मल्टीलेटरल डेवलपमेंट करना, उसके लिए बहुत सारे गेम्स को प्रेफर किया जाता है. और गेम्स के साथ साथ जो 2 चीजें और देखी गई हैं बच्चों के अंदर, एक तो टेनिस बॉल के गेम्स बच्चों के लिए बहुत ही ज्यादा है, जिसके अंदर वो बोलते हैं भी जो रिएक्शन है बच्चों के अंदर बहुत ज्यादा डेवलप करने की भावना भी रहती है और कैपेसिटी भी रहती है. एंड दैट सेकेंडली स्विमिंग. अगर हम अपना बेटाली क्रिस्केंचो को भी थोड़ा सा उदाहरण ले ले, द यूक्रेनियन हैवीवेट ओलंपिक एंड वर्ल्ड चैंपियन, उसने कई जगह पे रिकमेंड किया है दैट अर्ली स्विमिंग की जो डेवलपमेंट है उसको आगे चलकर स्पोर्ट्स के कैरियर के अंदर बॉक्सिंग के अंदर बहुत ही ज्यादा मदद किया है, जिसके अंदर मिस्टर डैन आल्सो हैज गिवन द एग्जांपल ऑफ Lomachenko. What is happening? It may be due to the weather condition also. यूरोप के अंदर हम जो weather condition है, स्विमिंग पूल बहुत ज्यादा है जहाँ इंडोर एक्टिविटीज करते हैं. उसके उल्ट इंडिया के अंदर ज्यादा बच्चे आउटडोर रनिंग प्रेफर करते हैं. बट हियर आई रिकमेंड दैट we should give a stress to put our children also more in swimming or the minor game ball games. Then taking to the coordination, they say the children, they should be left on their own to play in the game. क्योंकि एक बच्चा जब वो कई जगह पे कई दफा सरफेस चेंज करते हैं, कई जगह पे कोई एक्टिविटी चेंज करते हैं, उसके अंदर जो नेचुरल मूवमेंट को आप इंडल्ज करते हैं, अपने आप को उसके अंदर से जाते हैं, यू डेवलप मोर कोऑर्डिनेशन. Then after 10 or 11 years, most of the coaches around the world, they recommend own body weight and partner exercises. जब एक छोटा बच्चा होता है वो स्टैंडिंग जंप, ग्राउंड के ऊपर जंप, या 2-3 मीटर का रोप क्लाइंबिंग, या अपने ही बॉडी वेट के साथ पुशअप, मीन्स उस वक्त उसका जो इंटरनल डेवलपमेंट इतनी नहीं हुई होती, तो वो अपने जो बॉडी वेट को हैंडल करने के लिए फिट हो जाता है या काबिल हो जाता है, या इतनी उसकी डेवलपमेंट है कि बच्चा जो अपना ओन बॉडी वेट उसको हैंडल कर सके. देन जब ही इज एबल टू ओन हिज बॉडी वेट हैंडलिंग, तो उसके बाद वो पार्टनर एक्सरसाइजेज का या स्मॉल थोड़ा सा मेडिसिन बॉल है एक्सरसाइजेज वगैरह को रिकमेंड करते हैं. Then as far as the technical action are concerned, they say you lay the foundation for the boxing techniques. अगर आप पहले 3 साल 10, 11, 12 हर साल एक टेक्निक को भी ऐड करते जाते हैं, यू गेट ए एम्पल टाइम. आपके पास बहुत सारा समय हो जाता है जिसके अंदर आपकी टेक्निक की मास्टरी हो जाती है. उस वक्त जो हमारा एम होता है टू लर्न मोर टेक्निकल, टू हैव ए रेपिटोर ऑफ एक्शन. जितना ज्यादा से ज्यादा हम उसी एक्शन की प्रैक्टिस करेंगे जिसको आगे चलकर हमने एलीट लेवल पे प्रेफर करना है, उसकी वेरिएशन भी आएगी, मूवमेंट परफेक्शन भी होगा और उसका कोऑर्डिनेशन भी बेटर होगा. देन जब हम बॉक्सिंग के अंदर बात करते हैं, वी आर टॉकिंग ओनली ऑन द ऑफेंसिव एक्शन. तो डिफेंसिव एक्शन, जब बच्चों को एक टेक्निक वो लेफ्ट सीख रहा है, उसी के साथ साथ अपना लेफ्ट के डिफेंसिव एक्शन राइट सीख रहा है, राइट के डिफेंसिव, तो बच्चों को जो डिफेंसिव एक्शन है उसके अंदर थोड़ा सा साइकोलॉजिकल ज्यादा प्रेशर होता है और लर्निंग की स्पीड ज्यादा होती है. तो हम थोड़ा ज्यादा स्ट्रेस डिफेंसिव एक्शन के ऊपर दे सकते हैं, बट वाई कीपिंग ऑल द प्रिकॉशन, क्या बच्चे को कोई हैवी पंच लैंड ना करते. Then as he is growing, these techniques, they are further switched on. Uske aage बढ़ जाते हैं, that he goes for the mastery of the ranges. Then particular situation in the ring. And as he progresses in the youth and junior, that is a linking phase. जैसे हम एक airport से दूसरी flight पकड़नी है. Many of the coaches, they say it is a transit phase. बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है, जहाँ के बच्चों के अंदर हार्ड हिटिंग की भावना भी बहुत ज्यादा हो जाती है. उस वक्त हमने बच्चों को आइडेंटिफाई भी करना है और कंट्रोल भी करना है, दैट दे शुड नॉट बिकम हैबिचुअल. उनके अंदर ये भावना ना पैदा हो जाए मैं इतना मारूंगा, क्योंकि उस पंच का यूज उन्होंने आगे चलकर करना है. सो कंट्रोलिंग ऑफ द इमोशंस एंड टेस्टिंग फेज है, उसको हर जगह पे, चाहे साइकोलॉजिकल है, चाहे फिजिकल है, चाहे कंपटीशन के अंदर कंपटीशन की सिचुएशन को कैसे लेता था, हाउ ही वाज शोइंग हिज इंटेलिजेंस ड्यूरिंग दो सिचुएशन, दैट इज द टाइम. Mr. Jefferson has explained well how a child should progress from 8-9 year to up to the elite group. Thank you very much, sir.
Dan, you find some questions?
Yeah, it's one at the top from Santosh asking about what age boxers should do training with free weights and strength training for pre-competition period. How many sessions of strength training should be done per week, and total number of repetitions for youth and junior boxers? Yeah, so Santosh, just like when I put up the slide regarding the guidelines around repetitions, so what they said in research is 1 to 3 sets of 6 to 15 repetitions is what we want to look at there. And the reason for the high repetition range is more for the learning effect of the exercise as opposed to the actual weight that we put on this in terms of load. So what we're really trying to do is develop them slowly, but we're not trying to put a lot of weight on the bar. So in terms of muscle soreness, etc., that shouldn't really be occurring too much, because we don't want to be overloading that. So for your question in terms of how much strength should be done before competition, you shouldn't have to worry about that too much. You should be able to just to train through. You should be able to train through. But if you're doing it in such a way that you're getting muscle soreness from the kids because of overload, then we have to look at the load that you're giving these weights. Hopefully that answers.
Can a boxer do other martial art games, including boxing? From Saurav Guha. I would say yes. In Thailand, all boxers from Thailand started with Muay Thai. 99.9%. At one time, they have done Muay Thai before they came to boxing. So this is very common. From Sudarshan, participation in multi-sports, can it include sports like chess too, or is it only physical sport? Ben, you want to comment?
Yes, I think both. I would probably say both. Now, chess is very important. Would I call that a sport? I probably wouldn't call that a sport, but for the mind and for the mental development, it's very important. But I would do both. But when you say physical, I am assuming you're talking about different sports like swimming, tennis, blah blah blah, volleyball. So I would do both.
From Ron, explain specialized, as all boxers that I know who are even world champions today have always played many sports, and they do to this day. I feel that I'm not quite understanding the term specialization.
Shall I go ahead? Okay, so what I meant by, when I was explaining specialization, what I meant by that was youths and young kids specializing in one sport only. So, for example, like you'll see in the China, obviously that's an example, but you'll see in table tennis and gymnastics where these young kids are specializing very early, and then you're getting a high dropout rate, but because you've got such a big population, there's a huge turnover. And that's what I was talking about when I'm talking about specialization. I'm talking about somebody specialising in putting all their focus on one sport only. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, I say I also come from a culture where it's very common to do many sports, but there are other cultures where either you play football or you play boxing. There is no alternatives, and these become very repetitive training from early ages, and there is very less variation, and all the way to the high performance. And in these studies that were showed, if too much monotonous training of only one type of training is not the best for the long-term development. You can get good results at the youth level, but after that usually there is a stagnation. Abhishek Shah, if we are adapting multi-sport, isn't it we have to select sports which are somehow same in nature?
No, I would say complete opposite.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to evolve the athlete and learn new skills. So if you have a boxer and then they play badminton or dancing or squash, that is a very good range right there, and they should expand on that also, even to different sports like chess, I guess.
I know in the Soviet literature they have mentioned that sometimes it's even good that we should encourage that they make a sport even if that sport is contrary to the other sport at the highest level. Swimming will be helpful for us, from Kishan.
Yep, absolutely.
I would say swimming is crucial to learn. Everybody needs to learn swim. It's great coordination. So it's not specific for boxing, but it's good for life, and as coordination is excellent. You find some other question, Dan?
No, that looks like they're all finished. We're just getting thank yous now. So, looks okay. Here we just got one. Lloyd and Oliver have suggested the use of regression equation based on some anthropometric variables for the prediction of maturity. Yes, they have. Oh, can these equations be used? Yes. So they've came up with these equations for the predicting when a young athlete will go through peak height velocities, so that you know when you can training phases. And I know where I am currently that we do that test. We test these kids, and what it involves is we take their height, standing height, we take their seated height, and we take their weight, and we can put that into a spreadsheet that will give us an idea of when they will be hitting peak height velocity. And we understand that when they start to become a little bit uncoordinated due to the hormones and the bones growing faster than the muscles, etc., we can change the training. So yes, absolutely, you can do that. And you should also read that book. If you've not read that book, I recommend it, which is Lloyd and Oliver. So, yeah.
What other sports do you recommend for young athletes?
Just be creative. Badminton. I mean, in India, I guess kabaddi. You could use volleyball, wrestling, judo. Or the list goes on. There's so many sports. The list goes on.
I had a teacher who told me my daughter, she will do any sport, but the first thing she has to learn is swimming, gymnastics, and athletics. After she has tried these, she can try any sport, because these give you a very good base for any sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Santiago, which sport is good for old people like me?
For old people like you, boxing. Boxing is best training. Best training. No need for sparring. But boxing training is very famous. But it has to start slowly. Problem with the I'm not saying old. I'm saying people who are untrained. They want to go do something short, and short means fast movement, and there you get injury. So have to be little careful.
Santiago is not telling one secret of the European boxers. Most of them, the Hungarian, German, Bulgarian, they like more table tennis. They say it is very good for the reaction abilities plus the good level of the footwork. And all the best boxers from this belt, which he has seen and trained themselves, they were indulging themselves too much in the table tennis. Santiago, comment.
Table tennis is very good. Here in India, I have beaten everybody I played with.
No,
Only Ayush. Ayush, he beat me one or two times.
Jefferson, what is your comment on table tennis for the boxers on the reaction and the footwork abilities?
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yes. I agree. Anything like table tennis or these reaction
Tennis ball
based.
exercises with a little variation. Table tennis, they do many exercises. I have seen the German for the defense, even for the reaction with the table tennis ballers. But TT, I have seen him playing what he was not coming out. So I wanted to commit from his mouth that TT is good, useful, maybe as a recreation activity also. Sometime maybe in the recreation.
Also, another good point is that even when boxers at the youth and the elite level, when they go to play something else like table tennis or whatever, it takes their mind off everything that they're focusing on so much to allow their brain and mental and physical to get a rest is important, and that's why Santiago for rest days will include football and things like that. You know, it gives the athletes a rest. Also, you're also working, of course, but a rest from the main sport.
No, football is a little injury prone. You have seen many of the, especially in India. I am talking about India. And,
yeah, I've seen those guys play.
They become emotional. But some of the sports, they are adopted. Now, boxing, we were having a fox pad or punching pad. It has been adopted by the cricketers. The leading cricketers around the world, South Africa, England, Australia, for their hand-eye reaction or the ball is coming with speed. So they were telling the punch speed and the ball speed is same, and it is just coming same level where the ball has to come. They have started the punching with a very good protective equipments like putting on headgear. The leading like Flentoff, the leading all-rounders from the Australia and even South African, they are putting on the gloves and doing on the hooks pad. So like this, some of them for their reaction, some of them they are taking as footwork they have taken from in cricket from the boxing.
From Abhishek Malvia, during the off season, would it hurt to use muscle building exercises to develop the boxer's physique, or would it hamper performance too much?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. I probably 9 times out of 10 I would not do that. Yeah, that would be my idea. Right? There doesn't seem a reason for that. As boxing doesn't require that specific type of training. I wouldn't. Unless you're looking at a super heavyweight that you're trying to increase hypertrophy, that would be my only idea that you would do that. But otherwise, I would not do that. Santiago?
Yeah, basically I would say the same. Yes, you become stronger by increasing muscle size. So a little bit, yes. If you have a growing boxer or somebody who needs to put on little volume, and mostly at a heavier weight, especially a heavy weight. So in some ways, yes. The problem is that type of training increases strength but has low transfer for power. Not a totally no, but it's not the main importance for a boxer.